I want to talk about just how I started to play, how it all went down in the beginning. So, fourth grade, September, October of 1959, I was 8 years old. I wanted to take trumpet lessons. Growing up in Bucks County, suburb of Philadelphia, typical of that period, a school had a little school band and a teacher that would come around 1 or 2 days a week to rehearse the band and to give lessons. The school had available instrument rentals from a local music store, and there was some music in my family. Nobody in the music business, but my parents were from the big band era, and they liked bands like Glenn Miller and Tommy Dorsey. That was the kind of stuff that I heard in the house as I was growing up, as well as whatever was on TV, the Ed Sullivan Show, stuff like that. And also, there were some other relatives in the family that played as amateurs, not so much professionally, but that's the music that I heard. I had other couple of cousins that were playing instruments, roughly the same age as me. So, like I said, fourth grade, I want to take lessons and play in the elementary school band. I get this rental trumpet. It was, I believe, Roth Reynolds was the brand name. The first lesson book I had was called Easy Steps to the Band, and then later on there was Rubank and those books that were common, at least in that era. And my teacher was a woman. She was a clarinet player, as far as I know. Of course, she taught all the instruments. They may have had a string teacher that came in. I don't recall that, but actually the first couple of band directors that I had in elementary school, I think they taught all the instruments, or at least all the wind instruments or whatever. So in other words, it was a clarinet player that was trying to teach me how to blow into a brass instrument. So this was not a private lesson. There were, maybe let's say 4 or 5 other young fourth, fifth grade trumpet players starting out just like me with the same rental instrument. And so we're all in the little room where we're going to have the lesson. And, she's giving out the trumpets and all that. And also the lesson book came with it, so we're lined up, and of course I'm real excited. I'm just ready to pounce all over this. And so she shows me kind of like sort of just like sort of blowing it like you're drinking a little dainty wine glass or something like it, like just and buzz and actually start maybe like buzzing just on the mouthpiece without the instrument. Those were the kind of steps that we uh, you know that she had us do. And you know the music stands are up, the easy steps to the band is up. Of course, any of those elementary methods, start out, they'll have, there'll be a fingering chart or something like that in the front of the book. And then naturally you're starting to read music right away. So you got whole notes, whole rest, 4/4 time, all these things where, as you know, with all these kind of lesson books that you're trying to explain, music notation bit by bit at the same time. What's the key signature? What's the time signature? All that kind of stuff. And so you're gonna start beating your foot and playing a whole note and counting to 4 and then a rest and all that. It's of course it's going to be G in the staff or maybe even F in the staff, first valve, something like that, something pretty low. And oh, now I do recall it was G in the staff, no valves. And so I'm all excited and come out of this lesson with my trumpet and I'm buzzing, stuff on the way home and everything like that. And first thing that happened was I started practicing. And so when I go back the next week for lesson number 2, it turns out I was uh, I was on the wrong note the whole time. Instead of G in the staff, I was playing low C. So I don't know how that got mixed up, because later on I developed perfect pitch. In fact, as a kid, I had made less errors on perfect pitch then than I do now as an adult. But uh, at this point in the first lesson, there was no such thing as perfect pitch, because how could there be? I didn't even know what any of the notes were or anything. So any of this perfect pitch that may have saved me from playing on the wrong partials of the instrument, well, that wasn't going to be in effect yet, because there was no tonal memory yet. So, all right, but this is all sort of a foreshadowing as what was to come. So right away, I'm reading music, and of course, I'm wearing glasses now. I've worn glasses since before I was in first grade. I've always had vision problems, stigmatism, all this nearsightedness. And so this is not music. I'm just going to put it up here like it was music. Here's me with my trumpet, right? And I'm like this. We're probably all scrunched together, like 4 or 5 of us, crammed together in this little room, storage room, whatever. And I'm like this, and nobody's telling me how to breathe or anything like that. And I'm leaning into the music, trying to, see everything. So as you can see, this is the playing position I had starting out, and that's how I knew how to play in the beginning. What happened was the music aspects came to me fast. Counting, reading, rhythms, understanding key signatures, and even this tonal memory thing started, pretty much right out of the chute. And it all came to be like nothing, except as time went on, I couldn't develop any range. And it got more and more frustrating. I was taking private lessons. In other words, the private lessons started not right at the beginning, but they started maybe, let's say 2 months in, or, maybe the rental was for 10 weeks or something like that. Once my parents realized that I was interested in this, well, then, and plus I had cousins that were taking private lessons on trumpets or piano or whatever. So the private lessons started right, almost at the beginning. And of course, those private lessons would now be with a local, trumpet teacher, trumpet player. He was a high school band director in the area, and he played trumpet. And I took lessons with him. So this started in 4th grade through 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and I would even take the private lessons in the summer, straight through 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. And then at 7th grade, so in other words, I had about 3 years with this one guy. And then bear in mind, another piece of this, I was always very athletic through that, playing baseball, lifting weights. And I was kind of a little bit big for my age, height-wise. That kind of evened out later on. But in the beginning stages, I was, strong and all that, and yet I still couldn't develop any kind of range. Now, this first trumpet player did start to tell me about diaphragm breathing. Even that was goofed up from the first teacher that showed me, that when you take your air in, your stomach comes out, and then when you blow, your stomach goes in. In other words, I had this athletic approach to doing everything, except I was babying my chops, and the range wouldn't develop, and that made me kind of crazy, because here's this kid sitting next to me in the band, and he doesn't even practice, and he's starting to play high C's and stuff like that, and I'm still struggling to get out of the staff. So when I got to 7th grade, that band director he was also a trumpet player. So I started taking private lessons with him. And I was with him seventh grade, eighth grade, into ninth grade. So that's maybe about 2.5 years or something. And then this range thing, he tried to do certain things like, okay, I played pretty far down, my my jaw was back. I played pretty with the mouthpiece sitting pretty low on the lip. In fact, it would even slip off. I had to kind of screw it in to play. I'm not even going to try to play that way to demonstrate. This is stuff that I want to totally forget how to do. But I don't know if you can see it. The mouthpiece would slip down and stuff like that. So he tried to work on me, playing with the mouthpiece further up on my top lip. And so we hung in there with that for about a year or so, and it kind of got better. My range and my chops, I could get up to maybe high C some most of the time or whatever. But I didn't have a whole lot of endurance, and this went along, like I said, into ninth grade, and things seemed to be getting better. And then there was a Christmas concert in ninth grade, and my chops fell apart in the Christmas concert, and this was total devastation. In other words, the way it went through my mind at that time was that I had come all this way, or so I thought, in a year and a half, 2 years with this guy, only to have my chops fall apart, meaning, fatigue and no range anymore, air coming out or whatever. So this was, at least at the time, somewhat catastrophic. And now nobody knew the answer to this, including the band director who was now my private teacher. Nobody knew. Well, what are we gonna? Nobody had an answer to this. So, well, then there was some phone calls and some talking around, and out of this came the name Dr. Donald Reinhardt, who at that time was like sort of a based in Philadelphia. I think he also taught in New York also, but he lived in the Philly area, and had like a teaching studio in Center City, Philadelphia. And so this name came out of the woodwork somewhere, and they said, now he's controversial. He's helped some people, and other people he didn't help, and all this. And so they got in touch with him, because the other thing was, supposedly, I was 14 years old at the time, and supposedly he wouldn't even take students that young, supposedly. But somehow they managed to convince him that that I was serious or whatever, and desperate, and all that, and he agreed to take me. And this would have been, I was okay. So if the Christmas concert meltdown was obviously December of 1964, this would have been early 65, January, February, somewhere in there is when I took my first lesson with Doc Reinhardt. My mom got on a local train out of Bristol, PA, and we went down to Center City, and went to his studio and had my first lesson, and with another area trumpet player who was about a year or so older than me. And the first lesson was called Orientation, and we took orientation together. And that's how it started. Like I said, this would be January, February of 65.